How's it going, Andy?
Hey, everybody. Good.
Sorry about your loss.
Thank you very much. Very sad situation there.
Hey, Andy, how you doing?
Hey, Mr. Mayor.
I'm here too.
Yeah, I don't see you. I hear you.
No, I don't know why you don't see me.
You got to hit the video button down on the lower left-hand corner. Says
Okay,
either.
start video.
Either that or we don't get to see it tonight. There.
Yippee!
You guys hear me? This is Lucas. You guys hear me? This is Lucas.
Hi, Lucas.
I guess you can hear me. That's all I needed.
Hey, Al.
Hi.
Hi, it's Nancy, obviously.
Yes.
I am planning to be out of town on the 21st, next Monday.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Okay.
I will be on the Zoom meeting, but I won't be in town.
Mhm.
So would you mind catching bills?
Oh, no, not at all.
Thanks. I appreciate that because I'm planning to not be in town. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Hello, all. This is Victor.
Hi,
Hi,
Victor.
Victor.
Hi, Victor.
Region looking dry. Wednesday for highs 45 Denver, 47 in Flagstaff, Los Angeles. You're at 70.
Hello, all. This is Victor.
Hi, Victor.
Let's see, we have John, Matt, Al, Nancy, and John.
I think we're all here.
I have Chief Knight and Clerk Whitaker with me at the City Hall. So if you have questions for either of them during the meeting, please ask away. And then I think Danny and Lucas are on Zoom.
Yeah, Denny's on too.
Yep.
I have questions for him. All right, you got all the telephone and YouTube fired up?
Everything is fired up. I don't think we have anyone on the telephone, so I may turn that off if no one comes on.
Right. All right, well then it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Nick, can you call the roll for us?
Yes, sir. Al Dyka,
Here.
Nancy Rondell,
Here,
John Leo,
Here.
Matt Bulgara,
Here?
John Cox.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Perfect. We don't have any pesky bills or minutes to take care of this week, so I guess if there's any public comment on the YouTube or telephone, interweb, anybody? Going once, twice, thrice?
Move on.
Yeah, I guess we're into Victor. It's your show now.
Great. All right. So this is the public hearing on a proposed 2021 budget. So it would have to, Mayor, you probably have to motion to open the meeting, the public hearing, and we'll get a roll call for that.
Very good. I'll make a motion that we open the public hearing for the 2021 Harbor Springs budget.
Second.
Nancy Rondell,
yes, here,
John Cox,
Yes.
John Leo,
Yes.
Al Dyka,
Yes.
and Matt Bulgara.
Yes.
We are in open session for the public hearing.
Great. So, Mayor and Council, what you have before you and on the screen as well, we've had this for about a week. I believe we gave it to you on Monday afternoon, and we posted it on the website Tuesday afternoon. So the public has had an opportunity to look at it as well. It's the 2020 amended and 2021 proposed annual city budget. In your packet, you would have saw a budget, the capital improvements plan, and supplemental documents. What we're focusing on for this public hearing is just that 2021 proposed budget and the amended 2020 budget. And then the next agenda item, we can focus on a discussion about CIP and other items as well. So in the budget overview, I'm sure you've all had an opportunity to review it. I won't get into too many details. But we have projected Well, I'll start from the beginning. I'm sorry, I'm hearing some background noise from someone on Zoom. So make sure you're on mute if you're listening. Thanks. So we did some things a little bit differently this go around. We provided some charts and some graphs just so council could have a visual of where we are with our fund balances. For example, this first chart shows the projected beginning and ending fund balances for fiscal year 2021. As you can see, there isn't a whole lot of movement that we're proposing from the fund balances. These next graphs are a little more telling though. The general fund balance, this is what has been from 2015 through what we projected to be through 2021. As you see, we were on an increase going all the way up to 2017. Then we took quite a substantial hit from 2017 to 2020. Much of that was due to the FEMA project. And then we kind of have proposed a steady off right now with the general fund balance. And the similar thing, you can see the different graphs for the different projections for the other funds. We have the one for the street fund balances, the historical and the DDA fund balances, and as well as with the electrical, water, and sewer, and the waterfront funds. So there's some dips and almost sometimes what seems like exponential increases in some of the funds, but for the most part, we believe our funds are healthy. They are healthy, and I don't think anything to worry about from a fund balance perspective. As you probably noticed in the notes, a healthy fund balance for a general fund operating fund balance would be about 3 to 6 months reserves. So that would be as if we had no revenue coming in for a year, we would want to have enough money in our general fund balance to sustain the city's normal expenses for 3 to 6 months. Well, we have about 8 to 9 months of general fund balance in there. So we'd like to see that a little bit higher to 12 months, but that we are healthy with it. So we are well above the minimum standards. So as you see, the total fund balances here, the total fund balances throughout the years, you can just see kind of a bar graph of our total fund balances. So this includes the streets, water, electric, and general fund balance, et cetera, combined, the amount of money we have. So we're projecting at the end of 2021 to have just a little over $9 million in fund balances total. So going through just basically, I can go through some of this, Mayor, unless you want me to go in more detail, or do you want to open up to the council and the public for questions?
So just probably run through it real quickly. I think we've all had a chance to review it, and it's pretty straightforward. And if anyone has any questions, we can hold those till after the public talks.
Okay, great. Yeah, so the general fund, basically for revenues, we're conservatively projecting like normally with our property taxes. And so you'll see that in the general fund aspect. For expenditures, what we haven't included in our expenditures for the general fund is we did not include the tree grates or the boardwalk project. Now, the tree grate or the tree base project was something that the city council and DDA both expressed they wanted to do in the 2021. And the boardwalk was something that the planning commission recommended that we could potentially look into for 2021. We didn't include the tree grates or the boardwalks because we wanted to present a budget that was show the council what our operating budget will look like without any major capital improvement projects, and then let the council decide if they want to pursue those projects. And then we're not recommending not pursuing those projects, at least the tree based project. But for the boardwalk project, we didn't include it here because there's a grant that we could potentially get that we don't want to rush that grant. We would make a 2022 boardwalk repair or redo much easier. So that's one of the main reasons why I would include the boardwalk as well. But as you see, we do have some capital expenditures, some small ones. For example, City Hall, we're looking at installing new locks on city doors, which includes a fob key system, the ability to automatically lock and unlock doors. Also for parking lots, we have a contractual agreement to resurface the shared parking lot with the Methodist Church. We had an agreement with Methodist Church, I don't know, for 15, 20 years. It expired a few years ago, and council renegotiated that contract earlier this year. And so those repairs will be happening next year. We're splitting the costs with the Methodist Church. Most of those costs are coming from the city. And the Parks and Grounds capital outlay includes the landscaping project that we have here for the spillway at Zoll and Main, as well as the pickleball court projects. So that's the general fund expenditures and revenues. The major street fund, we have some expenditures. I think we've already bidded out 2 of these, and council selected 2, and that was the West 3rd Street undercut and the Bay Street sewer improvements. Those should all be taking place hopefully in the spring next year. It could be in the fall, but hoping for the spring. And then we're going to be bidding out soon this East 3rd water main project. For the local street fund, the major thing here is with expenditures, as noted earlier this fall, we are doing a $50,000 sidewalk project because we're not able to fit in the $25,000 for sidewalk repairs that we agreed to annually do. So we're combining 2020s with 2021s for next year. So you'll see a bid coming probably January or February. We'll be opening up the bids for that. So we'll see that expense in 2021. Historical fund, a note here is that our historical, I guess our Blackbird Museum curator or employee is retiring at the end of this year. So those employee expenses will not be incurring those expenses for next year. And then also next year, we're going to, January or February, talk with the Historical Society about really getting some details over whether or not will for sure take over operating the museum. Of course, the city would still own it, but the collection and the building will then be operated by the Historical Society. So we will probably have next year probably a different look at this fund. It may be that we decide we do not need this fund balance anymore. We can just lump it into the general fund, but that's something we can discuss next year, of course. DDA, the only real difference that you see compared from this year to last year is that Ice Fest revenues and expenses are lower, and that's because the Ice Fest is looking different this year. There'll be no chili cook-off, for example. Electric fund, we have a few projects that we're going. They're generally relatively small scale projects. We decided to push spread the larger scale projects over the course of longer period of time, excuse me. There's a system model update and a system study that was actually planned for 2020, but with the COVID-19, the pandemic, some of these projects got pushed off. So those 2 system model updates and the system study will be in 2021. They'll be happening there. Our annual replacement of primary underground cables, that's $50,000 that the electric department annually puts away for those for burying our cables. That's an annual cost. And then we have an unknown cost for the solar panels. We have received bids for that, and council will be looking at those bids next week. But we're not sure exactly what the cost will be because, of the grant. We may or may not get the grant, which could pay up to $100,000 for the project. So, but other than that, those are the major expenditures for the electric fund.
Victor, I'm sorry, this is John. Just a quick question. Can you clarify what the system model update entails?
From what I can gather, and this is a little bit out of my wheelhouse, if Lucas is on, he may be able to help, but I think what it is an overall picture of where we're at with our system, as far as generation with our backup generators, the whole line system in general, and how they work together in case of an outage. Without getting into any more detail, which I don't really know, I think it's just an overall look of where we're at and what our future needs will be.
Okay, so it's a health check on the system. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Lucas, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, on the system study, it's similar to like a hydraulic study for the water system. It looks for what the loads are and it checks for any imbalances to see if we have deficiencies in transformers or line ties or anything like that throughout the entire system, and it allows us to then do future projects to make sure that we have balances or load balances on the three major circuits that we already have.
Now,
Thank
is this a compute, is it a computer model, a paper model? How is it generated?
It's a computer model, and once the system study is done, then you can go into adding that information into the computer model to see if we have any deficiencies in any specific area.
Great. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the water sewer fund. Again, this is some contractual services for some projects we're working on. One is replacing a water main on East 3rd Street between Ingle Street and Nelson to M119. That there is some additions that we added in there that Benchmark is also looking at right now, which includes adding storm drain. It wouldn't be a major expense addition to this project, probably $20,000 to $30,000 estimate right now. It was originally slated for $270,000 is what we budgeted. We're expecting that storm drain addition or add-on to be about $25,000 to $30,000. That's because no storm drain exists there, and there's a lot of problems there. There's also replacing the water main from the Bull Moose well to West Bluff. That'll be probably bidded out sometime soon as well. And there's the 8-inch water main on Bay Street between Spring and Gardner. This is actually the sewer project. That was a mistype there, but the sewer project that sewer water project that council approved last council meeting. In the waterfront fund, we're not expecting a whole lot of difference in the expenditures. It was a little funky year. Boating, I guess revenues were up, and a lot of that had to do with up more than expected because of the pandemic. There was more boaters on the water, and since a few seasonal slip holders didn't show up, we were able to rent those slips out on a transient basis, while also the seasonal slip holders paid their annual due. So we got some more money there than expected. We're conservatively projecting, budgets, our revenue to stay about the same based on an unknown 2021 with boating and COVID and et cetera. Equipment fund, we're proposing essentially two purchases. One is a replacement of the 2015 police patrol vehicle. That's about $50,000, as well as the replacement of the electric department's pickup truck that has about 130,000 miles on it. That's a $35,000 expense. And that's the major highlights for this budget. And you'll see as we go through, for example, the general fund, as you saw, where our operating deficit conservatively we're estimating is at about $10,000. So give or take a few thousand, it's pretty much net zero based on the trend that we project conservatively for budgeting purposes. However, that would change, of course, should we include the tree-based project here, which is something that council can decide to do after the public hearing to add on the tree project, which could, that cost is what the DDA came to the council last meeting for, was to say, they don't know the cost yet. It could be as little as, $40, $50, $60, $80,000 if we're just going with basic, just changing the tree grates and replacing some trees, or if we're going to do more, including some sidewalk, brickwork, et cetera, it could cost, more, but we just don't know what that more would look like. So that is an unknown number at this time, but if the council wants to go forward, proceed with that in 2021, then we would have to put some rough number in there for the budget. So I guess without any further ado on any of the other funds, unless there's any questions, I guess we can open up to the public, and then council, if you have more questions after the public hearing, we can tackle those. Mayor, I'll hand it back to you.
All right. I guess on the public hearing, is there anything on the YouTube?
Let me check really quick. I see nothing on YouTube.
Huh. And no one's on the phone still?
Nope.
No. Anyone on Zoom have anything to say?
Yes, Matt, this is Patrick O'Brien on East Main Street.
Patrick?
Yeah, let me pop my video on. There we go. I just wanted to say I really appreciate the city. I recommended that the city include storm drains on East Third, and I really appreciate you taking a strong look at it and sending it up to engineering. I think it's a real valuable, cost-effective thing to do.
All right, well, thank you for that. Anyone else on the Zoom? All right. Well, I guess if there's no interest from the public, I'll close the public hearing and we can get on with our discussion of the budget.
Yeah, we'll need a motion to close, Matt.
All right, I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Al Dyke.
Nancy Rondell. Nancy Rondell.
Yes, I had to unmute myself. Sorry. Yep.
No problem. John Cox.
Yes.
Al Dyke.
Yes.
John Leo.
Yes.
And Matt O'Gara.
Yes.
Public hearing is closed.
All right, Mayor, so this is where I suggest in item 2, I would suggest that we don't vote on the budget today. We have a discussion about the CIP and any budget discussion today. And then at the next council meeting on December 21st, if staff makes any recommended changes to the budget or the CIP, we come to the next meeting, adopt the CIP first, because that's the way state law requires it, and then adopt the budget, proposed budget after that with any edits. So I would agenda item number B, 2B would be a discussion about both the budget and the capital improvements plan. So nothing needs to be agreed to today.
Right. All right. Anyone have any comments about what we've heard so far or complaints?
I have a question in the general fund. The hospitalization premium share. When I was on the council last, it was some state law, I believe, that made us change, and where the employees had to participate in that, in their paying their own insurance. And I'm wondering, is this something new that we're going to pay the entire amount this year, or has that been going on for a while?
Yes and no, things have not changed to the extent that Public Act 251, I believe, states that a municipality can opt on an annual basis to have the employees cost share at an 80 to 20%, or the state hard caps, which are a number that has changed with inflation annually, or they can opt out completely on an annual basis. Council decided to opt out for this year as the cost of benefits, retirement benefits, and hospitalization benefits to the employee have well exceeded any cost of living raises they have realized in the last 3 to 5 years. So people's actual take-home pay has decreased every year for the last 5 years. Now, I strongly recommend that this has to be looked at on an annual basis, as I did before, because this is not something that I think the city is going to be able to sustain for a long period of time. My recommendation for next year, being 2022, would be to look at multiple different healthcare policies, whether there be one with a higher deductible, an HSA type deal. Just give the employees some options to say, okay, I'm not a high user. I would rather go with this program because it'll cost me less out of pocket. Or opposed to somebody that is a high user that would rather pay more of a deductible or more of a cost sharing, knowing that they their family or their situation requires more usage. So this is something that needs to be looked at annually in fairly good detail, because health insurance is going to became in the last decade, and I assume will continue to be a rising unknown cost. If that makes a short story long.
You answered the question. Thank you.
And, you know, thinking about what we did this year with paying their full cost on the health plan, it might bode well for us with union negotiations going forward. That we did that, you know, might be an option to save money in some wages or, you know, pay increases going forward. Well, I have to look at the cost difference, but
Yes, correct.
yeah.
And we're still, and just to clarify, we're only paying 100% of the premium. They're still paying their deductibles and et cetera.
Right.
The employee is, so yeah.
Right, there's still a $10,000 out of pocket, I think is average, $10,000 out of pocket expense to each employee, depending on single, family, two-person, you know, it varies, but so there is still, all of the employees still have, I guess, skin in the game, for lack of a better term.
Right. All right. Any other questions?
I wanted to note the effort that Victor and his team put into it. The addition of the chart was incredibly helpful. Trying to read through the tables and figure out what trends are is next to impossible. The addition of the trends over time really provided an overall image of where we've been and where we're headed. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Yeah. In fact, I like the new layout with all the information at the beginning, instead of having to flip through all the sections to see what the expenditures and revenues are. So.
Thank you.
Well, I guess if there's nothing else on the budget, we get to talk about the tree grates and the boardwalk project. Anyone want
Yeah,
to
and
start?
I'll preface, Mayor, with, again, clarify some comments about the boardwalk. And you've probably read in the notes, but we are applying for one big grant right now, and that's the land acquisition grant. And that has a deadline of April 1st. The TAP grant, which could provide 80% of the funding for the boardwalk project, is also a pretty large grant. There's a lot of steps we need to do. For example, we need to have a complete streets plan, have to have public meetings, have to put it in the master plan, et cetera. And that deadline, the first deadline for the TAP grant is February 26th or somewhere around then, I believe. And so with both of those deadlines approaching and the land acquisition grant, we have a lot of things to do as well, such as we have to have a conceptual plan for that park space for the grant in order to apply for the grant, and environmental assessments, appraisals, all these other things that we have to do. I thought it was best that we do focus really hard on the land acquisition grant, because that's a huge amount of money, potentially 75%, $3.75 million. Thank you for those council members who pointed out that I had the wrong number in there. But $3.75 million we could potentially get for that project. So that deadline is April 1st. The TAP grant has 3 deadlines. This is going back to the boardwalk, has 3 deadlines in a year: late February, late June, and I think mid-October. If we apply for the grant, the TAP grant, in late June, it takes about 5 months for them to issue or award a grant, and that would give us around November. So it would set us up for a spring 2022 replacement of the boardwalk if we get the grant money. If we try to do the application in February, we'd get that back in probably, August, and we wouldn't probably be able to do a boardwalk project either late fall, but probably push it back to 2022 anyway, but by the time we get all our ducks in a row. So I think it's best for a 2022 project. the tree-based project, I think the council has talked that, let's wait and see on what the bids come back as, and at least the last meeting. And I have no problem, I think from a financial standpoint of, doing some sort of tree-based project in 2021. We just don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet until we get the bids back, until the council decides which direction they want to go with the tree bases. But if back in late 2019, we directed the DDA to look into the tree bases more, and said that we would contribute up to $100,000 because that's what we assumed the cost to replace the tree, or to add some sort of material at the tree bases, whether it was grates or something else at the time. And that's why we came up with the number $100,000. So just for some context there for why $100,000 has been the number floating around for the tree-based project.
Victor,
Back to
what's
you,
the, oh, sorry,
No, yeah.
what's the status of the boardwalk
Well,
currently?
it's still there. If that's what you're asking, but I mean, it's not unsafe. I mean, I don't know if Lucas's guys are out there a little bit more than I am. I don't know, Lucas, if you want to, or Danny, if you want to add on. It definitely is, should be looked at soon. Lucas, if you want to add on to the status of the boardwalk.
We made some repairs to it with handrails and boards that are decaying and things like that this summer. Again, it's the erosion underneath the boardwalk, where how they had installed it back in, I believe, heavy rains we've been experiencing over the last.
Lucas, I think you're coming in and out there. John Cups, did you kind of get that?
It sounded like it was more of an erosion issue, more so the boards. I was just checking to make sure it was going to be safe that we, put it off for another year. But I agree with you that the land acquisition, maybe at this point is a bigger deal than tackling the boardwalk. And then the other question would be the contractors that were involved that we got bids from, are they still good, and will they be available to do the work?
No. So the bids that we originally got a couple of years ago, we had asked them if they would be good for 2019 still. I think that's what happened. And they said yes, but now it's going to be 2021, 2022. We'd have to rebid it out. Yeah. So I think another discussion about, what we're going to exactly do with the boardwalk. If we're going to go with the same plan that was approved by council a few years ago, we can talk about that more in detail. But yeah, we'd have to have that discussion again, probably in early 2021, about how we want to bid that out when we go for the application process, the grant application process.
Gotcha. Well, I know the previous boards put a lot of work into that, and I think the design and the concept is good. So if we're going to put it off for another year, we should probably look at getting those bids out again, so we kind of know what we're looking at for 2022, I guess you'd say.
Previous councils put a significant amount of both engineering and council time into the project, and I agree, John. I think the definition is good, but given what the cost of materials and labor has done in the last couple of years, we definitely need to understand what the cost would be in 2021, 2022, because I think it's going to be significantly different.
Absolutely.
And the only reason to do anything different would be if it's unsafe between now and then, which when we walk it, again, it's old. And I think the DPW is always just doing a good job maintaining what needs to be done. But I don't think it's unsafe. We should certainly determine that by someone with more of a trained eye than mine.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, and those are the old bids from,
Yep.
And I also included in this supplemental documents, as you probably saw, the example of the TAP grant that we need to apply for. So what's required, you know, so that's all there just to
Significant
understand.
amount of work,
Yeah.
but it's a significant amount of money and I think worth the effort. And certainly if it being part of the revised master plan will help, those should be sequenced accordingly.
And like with the Boardwalk, the TAP grant, as well as with the land acquisition grant from the DNR, as you see here, you know, they both require maintenance plans as well. So there's, you know, things that we have to consider, future costs and just things that we need to work out as staff on a detailed level. That's going to take some time, as well as with council. So my suggestion is that we bring this information back to council in early 2021, the old bids, the designs, and see, and if you cement that this is there's a direction that you still want to go in that exact same direction, then we'll go in that same exact direction. But if we need to look at the costs more closely to see how they've changed in the past few years and any other options, then we'll do that as well. So I'll leave that up to council.
I think that's a good plan.
all right, so we'll revisit that next year.
Sounds
In
good.
a couple weeks.
Ouch.
Sounds good.
Yeah, then the next discussion for a CIP project that we would be talking about for 2021 would be the tree base project. And you guys heard the presentation or the update from the DDA last week. And so they probably will seek direction from council when we adopt the budget and CIP next week, if we're going to go forward with the tree base project, or at least having them go get bids for it based on what they presented last week.
Well, I think, you know, we've always talked about that $100,000 is what we wanted to spend. And I think if, you know, we keep it in that ballpark, you know, maybe have them look at what they can do for $80,000. And then there'll be a, you know, $20,000 for contingencies and long-term maintenance. Might be a, you know, kind of give them some guidance on what they should be bidding out. I guess that's my thoughts on it.
Well, when we talked about it after the DDA presentation, I think removing the electrical component would allow that project to be bid. I think it was John who originally said, let's bid it out with basic sidewalk replacement, centering the trees where we want them to be, and then options can be added to that logically. With the electrical, you really couldn't do that because the electrical installations changed the project so much and had such a significant impact on the cement work. But if it's just the tree grates being put into a new sidewalk with the holes in the right place, that's the way it should be bid.
I thought that was pretty much what direction we gave them
Yep.
after the presentation was if they did want to check on some of the others, to have them be separate items.
Right.
That we could look at just the tree and possibly replacing all the trees and possibly just replacing the ones that needed to be replaced.
Exactly. But I think we also deferred to the budget discussion to make sure that that's the direction that we wanted to go in.
I guess my fear is, you know, originally we gave or said we were willing to spend $100,000, and, you know, they took the reins and ran with it. And all of a sudden it was a $250,000 project, I think. We need to give them a cap or, some guidance, so they don't run into that same problem again. Because if they go out and bid it with all these contingencies, it's going to end up being over $100,000 again. And, I don't know, physically if we can spend that kind of money, or, do we want to spend that kind of money on this project? So that's my only, hold up with this is if we say it's 100 grand, then, they're going to spend 120, or they're going to spend exactly 100 grand. And then there's little things that are going to come up on top of it that could drive the price up even more. So.
Right. Well, like we talked about, if they start out with a base starting point, and then add 2 or 3 options to the bid, the bidders are going to bid that. It's not a big deal.
Right.
So, I mean, I think we gave them good guidance before. Start out at a base starting point, and then add, like the brick or maybe moving things around kind of thing. Start out simple, and then we can then review some of the options and get up to around that point that, like you were saying, Mayor, that 100,000, or maybe it's a little bit more, but we're going to get more bang for our buck that way.
Right.
Well, and I think we'll end up with a true understanding of project cost. We can make a decision based on that and what we can and should spend, but it would also give the DDA an opportunity, should they choose, to raise money to supplement what the city is willing to put in to get to the solution that they want to implement.
Right. And I think I just saw Andy pop something up here, that there's grants. I'm not a big grant writer, so I don't understand all that, but I'm sure there's things out there that can be used to help out with that.
Yeah, John, to interrupt you there, I'll just read the comments from the Zoom audience. Dana Mulder said, should we not bid the best solution and see where it comes from? Could we not supplement what council can spend? I'm assuming she means, can the DDA supplement what council can spend? Andrew Potter, there are grant options specific to DDAs that could pay for a portion of this project. Has the DDA explored any of these grant options?
Yep.
So, and I mean, those are good points. Just because the project might cost more than $100,000 or more than the council is willing to spend, whatever that number is, if the DDA and or other options are available to supplement those costs, then it might make the entire project, if it ends up being over $100,000, doable if council's not willing to spend over that amount of money. So, yeah. But I think at the same time, to just echo the mayor's point, is that we also want to keep in mind that we're going in with an unknown cost for budgeting purposes. So what number would you recommend? Do we just put that $100,000 back in the budget, that $100,000 cap? Do we stick with that we talked about just for budgeting purposes, because we need to approve this budget next Monday? Or is there another number? Do we keep it at 0 and then just wait to see what the bids come back at, and then amend the budget as we do every December anyway?
Well, I think that, and I'm a new person on the block here, so I wasn't in on all the previous discussions, but I think we want to support, they've put a lot of effort into trying to figure this out. And I think council's asked them to try and figure this out. So I'm hesitant to put 0 in the budget for it. I think that sends a little bit of a not good message to the DDA. So if in previous days, the council decided 100,000 was where they were comfortable, then I guess I would like to see us just put that in, and if they have to come up with more money or write grants or whatever, then that can certainly happen. That would just be my suggestion.
I agree. We can certainly amend the budget later, but I don't think a starting point should be 0 if we're saying that we would like to move forward with the project. So I would put in the 100, as Nancy said, as a cap and go from there.
I agree.
I'd agree with that. I mean, I think for $100,000, just, a lot of good can happen there. And then there's some of these contingencies and some things they want to add to it, then we can look at other options.
All right, so I'm hearing right now just a general consensus, so let's put the $100,000 in the budget for next Monday when we come back. Two more comments. Dana Mulder, this is a legacy project. Let's not skimp. Lucas Vanderzee, also remember just to have cast iron grates made and delivered was $38,000 plus for this year. That did not include any labor or installation cost or tree replacement.
Right.
So just something to keep in mind. I see no comments on YouTube on that part of the discussion. So I guess if there's no more comments on Mayor on that tree grate portion of it, we'll make a note here as staff to bring you a revised budget with the $100,000 added to it. I guess we can talk about any of the other CIP projects or concerns or thoughts that you guys had on CIP. I know yep, sorry.
If I may quickly, this is Nick. When we budget for this, it's a DDA project. So what I'm going to do in the budget, and it might not look like you're expecting when we come to next week to vote on this, I will budget $100,000 for the project in the DDA fund with a $100,000 budgeted revenue transfer from the general fund. And then on the general fund side, it would be $100,000 transfer to the DDA. Since it will be, a DDA project, they'll be spearheading it, doing all the legwork. It'll just be funded by the general fund with a transfer, if that makes sense to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Makes sense in your world. That's all.
I was gonna say that's all that matters, right?
As
Long as you can explain it to the auditors, we're good.
I can do that.
Think of it as transferring, $100,000 to your wife's account or something. So she can.
No, Victor, no.
Not going to happen.
My wife's not listening. Don't worry.
Hey, on the CIP, so a question on the pickleball court stuff. So and I'm just asking a question here, with the future projects looking for like updating Kiwanis and things like that, what's going to happen to the old skate park and things down the road? I guess my question here is, if we're going to spend this money to fix up these pickleball courts, is that then going to go away, or are these courts going to stay there for the extended period of time?
So
what's the view of that?
I can have Danny answer more detail, but the pickleball courts we're planning on keeping those pickleball courts there. The skate park, we're also planning to keep the skate park there as well, but there may be in the future the improvements we need to make to the skate park, such as equipment, but we're not planning on moving the pickleball courts at this time anywhere.
Okay.
Danny, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, if I could just mention something here, is what we're doing currently is we're moving all of the skate park ramps and everything over to where the pickleball courts are going to go. And that's it's a huge project, a lot of manpower. And every time we move those ramps and everything, they become less stable. Now that we're putting in pickleball courts, we're going to have to move those ramps outside because we don't want to put them on the new court that we just spent all this money. So we're going to have to move all those ramps outside, cover them in order to get the ice rink ready to go for winter time.
Right.
If we had the potential to move the skating rink up to Kiwanis, we would be able to keep all the ramps where they are in the ramp area and cover them for winter. So it would be a major benefit for maintenance and manpower and be a lot more efficient than what we're doing now. But in no way are we going to put the new pickleball courts at risk. We're just going to have to put them out in the park and cover them. It'll be a big deal, but well worth it.
Okay, that's what I was curious about. Thank you.
Good question.
And I'm all for the renovations and the bringing back Kiwanis Park. So I think that's a great deal.
Thank you. I think it's an awesome idea too.
We have two comments. I'll just read them as they come in, but on the Zoom chat, one from Margaret Zeus. I think that is the only way to do the fund since the DDA cannot use TIF funding for the tree grate project. She was referring to the transfer in, transfer out portion. And Bill Mulder, to everyone, the Planning Commission also suggested that council consider repairing or replacing the Judd Street wall soon. How do council members feel about that project? And you'll see in your CIP that we did include the Judd wall replacement as a project in, not next year, but in the upcoming years. I think it was 2024 or 2023. I'm not sure. Let me double check there.
It was a couple years out.
Yeah, it was a couple years out. And one of the issues with that was the last quote we got for that was in 2009, I believe. And that was at $100,000. So we proposed moving it. We need to go back and actually have our engineers look at it again and see what the actual cost will be now 11 years later after, a lot of things have changed in the economy and the conditions there. We'll have to see exactly what has changed about the conditions and what it would cost to stabilize the wall and replace it, et cetera. But we do have it included in, I think it was 2020.
It's 24.
2024, yeah. And we could, of course, this is just, again, this CIP is a planning tool. We could move that up, move that back depending on the needs. But yeah, we have it a few years out. So
yeah, I seen in your notes there, I seen where Benchmark had indicated going in front of that existing wall. Unless we're going to make that hill a one way, I don't think going in front of that wall would be an option to take up more space. It's already tight passing vehicles and stuff like that. So I don't know if Lucas can explain that a little more from what they looked at way back when or what, but I think that should gear towards more of a complete tear down and redo, something that that wall's been there probably 100 years. So look at putting something that's going to outlast us.
John, can you hear me?
Yep.
In front of would be to the north side. So it'd be behind the wall. We'd actually dig behind the existing wall, construct a new wall, then remove the old one and actually widen the road like we did at the very north section.
Okay.
We just have to be careful of the right of way there because that is private property that is owned on the bluff. So we have some constraints there, but it would definitely not narrow the road. It would probably make it a little bit wider.
Okay, maybe I misread that then.
In front of on that one would not be on the road side. It would be on the bluff side to the north.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
So I guess, Mayor, council members, any other thoughts or questions about the CIP? Again, as mentioned, this is a planning document. So we're not, by approving this next week, we're not setting anything in stone for these projects. There's just a guide of kind of where we want to go and what we want to see in the future, potentially.
Right.
A lot of these are.
Well, go ahead, Victor.
I was gonna say a lot of these are unknowns. For example, when we had like things like dog park and tennis court included in there, those are things that we don't know yet. Those are things that have been mentioned by council members or public frequently in the past. And we put them in there, but not knowing exactly what we want to do with certain projects. But we know that they might be something that council or the public want us to look into.
Right. Okay. Yeah, no, I like this CIP thing. It makes it a lot easier to look at what we're doing going forward. And
very well.
The scoring system's good. You know what's important to people and what's not. So,
well, also the thought I've had about the park and recreation is if we do acquire the Zoll Street and Beachland, that will be another park recreation area. That's my understanding with the grant we're going for, and that I could foresee that maybe changing some ideas about our existing parks. Because our hands on the one on Zolan Beach, if we get the big grant, will be tied in some ways. Because am I right that once we take that grant money, it limits what we can do with that property, Victor?
Yes, so the grant basically limits that property to outdoor recreation use, public outdoor recreation use, which we'd have to look more in detail exactly what that would mean, but it's in line with generally what we would do with outdoor parks. We don't know exactly when the environmental assessment comes back, what that would say about what we can do with the property.
Right. But if we pick up that much more park property, that might change some of our ideas about some of our other existing parks, I guess is what I'm going for.
Yeah, it could. I mean, it depends on what our plan is for that. Yep. And yep. I want to bring up that we did get a comment from Bill Mulder regarding the Judd Hill that said people are definitely concerned about the safety and appearance of the wall. Sounds like a long time to wait.
The walls look like that since I was in elementary school. So
I agree. It's been that way since I've been here.
so but I think it's something, that we should, I mean, we've been doing an enormous amount of renovation work, with city infrastructure and everything else over the last handful of years. So that is definitely something that once we probably get past the boardwalk issue, because I think that's a bigger safety problem right now, then maybe that retaining wall would be the next thing we look at.
Well, and Mayor and Council, part of this discussion is really how much money we have in our general fund to tackle a lot of these bigger projects. And that's why the document that we sent out today, and I'll put it on the screen, was a Parks and Recreation millage worksheet, was to show what would it look like if we went to the voters to ask them if they would approve a millage, if this is the direction council wanted to go, was to give to voters. What it would look like to have a Parks and Rec millage, our operating costs, and how much money that would free up in the general fund to do some of these other projects that are necessary, like capital projects such as parking lots and fixing this Judd Hill wall, et cetera. So we prepared this kind of millage sheet Denny put together with the help of Nick and I, and just to show you, in the CIP, we're looking at about $2.7 million of recreation parks projects. Now, again, many of these aren't cemented in stone. We haven't, pickleball courts, yes. Boardwalk, yes, we want to do. We do know there's things we want to do at Marina Park. Some have suggested just simple landscaping, but we put the maximum number there for based on some conceptual looks at what it could cost to do that. Kiwanis Park, that the building, the parking lot, if we need to redo anything there. So some of these aren't for sure. Some of these are ideas, but just on our CIP alone, that's the kind of money we're looking at from parks. Now, this $2.7 million, a lot of it could come from donations or grants, but anyways, just to give you a perspective of how much money the CIP is looking at for potential park projects. And then we kind of put together a sheet on what it would look like, what it costs to operate the parks program. So skate beach, skate park, city beach, sled hill, ice rink, staff wages there. It's about $325,000 annually. This is just a rough estimate, not detailed, but to operate the parks. So if you do a millage, depending, we've looked at what different size millages would kind of revenue it produce. If you did, a 2 mil, for example, it would cover the park operations costs and then give us $227,000 roughly a year for parks projects. So, and of course, we would also want to take into account that the more projects we do, as Nancy kind of pointed out as well, then we'd have to increase our maintenance costs and other costs that we would end up be operational costs. So we just assumed conservatively $450,000 is what we would be using for operational costs on a yearly basis. So this is to give you an idea of what can be done from the millage perspective, just because we have a lot of projects that we want to do. And of course, none of these are cemented in stone, but there's a lot of projects that have been expressed by council members and the public. And in order to do these projects, we'd have to, do some kind of millage increase or get donations or grants. And really the more sustainable approach is a steady stream of revenue. But by doing this, I'm saying we're also removing that $325,000 or $450,000, whatever the operational cost may be, from the general fund that could be used for some of these other more necessary projects. For example, we have next year in 2022, we need to replace our chiller at City Hall, $55,000 project right there alone. That's a substantial cost that, with our current operating budget, we'll just be able to cover it, and really not much else for capital improvement projects. In about maybe 10 years, 7 to 10 years, we might need to replace both the roofs on City Hall and the police station. Sorry, that's gonna be tens of thousands of dollars. So we need find a way to get steady income for these projects. And as you can see with the discussion, tying it back to the discussion of the healthcare costs and other employee costs, these things all add up from operational standpoint of view. So we just put this sheet together just so you can see the advantages or disadvantages of doing a millage. And I assume maybe next Monday we can have that conversation, a more serious conversation about whether or not this is something we want to pursue in the sense of going to the voters for a potential ask for a millage. But I'm just throwing that out here now so you guys can have that context.
Now, Vic, this is a new document, very, very helpful to look at overall costs and opportunities, but this is really part of a broader discussion about revenue to the city in general. Parks and Rec millage, a millage specific to Parks and Rec is one element of revenue for the city.
Correct.
Yeah, no, it's, I think it's something we really need to look at because, if we want to do all these or do some of these things, we can't continue to just take it out of the general budget because we'll go broke sooner than later.
Yep, and to put that in perspective, yes, if we were to spend this 2.7 million, let's say that was the max that we want to do all these projects, not saying council does, but we want to do all these projects in the next 6 years. This $2.7 million would essentially take our fund balance to almost zero. Because we really have about $100,000 wiggle room in our, as of today, for capital improvements projects in our capital projects in our budget. And for this 2021 budget, those capital projects that we have are pickleball courts, the landscaping, as well as the Methodist Church parking lot, and then some City Hall doors and some City Hall stuff here. So it's really eating up pretty quickly. And there's a lot of these buildings that we have in the city that really need, in the next 5, 10, 15 years, going to be needing some serious maintenance and some rehab, basically. So, we need to take that into consideration as well. We can't let what we have existing fall apart or push it aside too far in the future.
Well, as Matt said, it's really helpful to have a capital improvements plan that goes out 6 years. We can begin to plan towards the future, both revenue and expenses, and understand what it's going to be. I mean, that's how we got into the situation with the Boardwalk, where it's $500,000 that we don't have the funds for. If we knew and planned, 50 years in advance, what it was going to take to replace it, the per annum component of that cost would have been very small. So I think we're definitely headed in the right direction.
Yep.
And Victor, if I could chime in a little bit, I think that, being a Parks and Rec person, Parks and Rec plays a huge role in our community, the health of the community, the economic value, bringing in new families into our home, into our community, and also providing quality outdoor experience for people who live here. Harbor Springs, we're a little bit behind. A lot of our surrounding communities already have parks and recreation millages, staffing, parks master plans, and we're playing catch up right now. And I think the council decided that this is a priority, and that's why they allowed us to hire a new director. And I think this would be a huge game changer for us in a lot of different ways. And I hope that we would have the opportunity to take it to a vote.
Thanks, Denny.
So what would be the next step for this particular thing?
For
Park millage?
Yeah.
So I would suggest, yeah, sorry, Danny, I'll just suggest that I would say we have a discussion at this next council meeting on December 21st, because if we are going to do some sort of vote or something, or go to the public for a vote, we would want to have some sort of education campaign based on what this is for, because we would want to show the public we have concrete plans of what we want to do, concrete goals, an idea of what the cost would be and what the projects would be. So if we were planning on having some sort of, for example, spring vote on it, because or whenever, but I would imagine it'd be a spring vote, May, June, that we would need a few months to prepare to present to the public, to present to council. And maybe it's not something that council says we have to vote on it on December 21st, but I think we should start that discussion on this revenue stream and how Parks and Millage fits into that revenue stream for the city. And if it's something that we want to pursue. So, I mean, ultimately council will decide, do we want to give the public an option to decide on this millage potential and what that could look like, that millage, 1, 2, 3, 4 mills.
Okay.
And that educational component has to include, we need to consider what we're going to ask for and when we're going to ask for it, in addition to Parks and Rec. We need to look at the city holistically, not just Parks and Rec.
That's true. And part of that, I guess, and also part of that with the sheet that we showed you was how much, the reason why we put the operational costs of $325,000 in there was if we would move that money, whatever money we raise in a millage would be moved to the Parks and Rec millage. So we'd free up that much money in the general fund for other projects and other things, other expenses.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It seems
I think it's
to me
definitely
that
worth something looking at.
it seems
Sorry,
to me that we need to present this plan. First of all, we got to discuss it among ourselves and decide if it's a plan that we all agree with. And then if we do, then put it out there for public comment for quite a while. And especially with the cost, I look at the cost of building some of these things, and it's not that big a deal. But then when you look at the salaries for the staff that it's going to take to run them, maintain them, that's a significant increase in our cost of living here in Harbor Springs. My house is fairly new. It's taxed at a new house rate. And, even at 2 mills, I kind of choke. So it makes it is a big deal. You got to show all these numbers to the public.
And I think
before you start taking moves and building this stuff.
I think too, I'm just reiterating a lot of what you said. This is only one part of Harbor Springs. I think there are a lot of other parts of Harbor that do need attention to and are going to need money. I know you had talked to us a little bit about the Headley Amendment. Don't ask me to explain all that, but how we maybe need to have our millage go up. Nick, what's that millage called? Just our regular millage? What's
Our operating millage.
operating millage itself? We're not very healthy in.
Exactly.
So to take, I look at the numbers like you did, Al, of what houses are worth and what, we own. And when you add that all together, and we also need to up the operating millage in order for us to be sustaining, it ends up being a lot of money. So I think we have to look at the big picture, not just Parks and Recreation. I think there's a lot of things that we need to look at.
I agree, Nancy.
So maybe this discussion gets delayed. I think we should, pass this plan as part of the budget. but knowing that we're gonna have to look at it, revisit it,
Right.
tweak it, and then, really show the people what it costs to do all this stuff that we dream about. And maybe those dreams will change a little bit.
Good point.
I would agree with that.
So any other, Mayor, Council, any other thoughts on the capital improvements plan? Any discussion, any other items?
It's great to be able to look out that far. For me, it's really helpful. This was a great packet to read through, but it was really helpful and very clearly written to make us look ahead, which I think is really important.
I agree. It's a great presentation.
It is. It is.
Thank you. Thanks to my team. Nick.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I'm not hearing anything else, Mayor, so no, I see no comments on YouTube. I see one chat on Zoom
Excellent.
from Anna Mulder. Excellent. Thanks, Anna.
All right, well, I guess this is everyone's last chance. If there's something in the budget you want to see or not see, speak now or forever hold your peace, because next week we approve it. So if there's anything beyond tree grates or anything you do like or don't like, because we've in the past we run into people at the next meeting saying, well, can't we do this? And it's like, no, we can't do that anymore. So.
Yep, we absolutely have to approve it next Monday. That's the last, unless you want to call a special meeting on Christmas.
Right.
I won't be there.
Just to clarify and supplement that comment by Mr. Mayor, as of right now, the only thing that I've gathered that I'm going to change in the actual financial sections is the $100,000 for the tree grate project. And then what I'll do is make that change, put together the resolutions to amend the 2020 budget and adopt the proposed 2021 spending plan. And really, if there's no other discussion at this point, it should be just a motion, a second, roll call vote. The budget will be put to rest. And then as things need to arise during the year, then we've obviously got the opportunity to make amendments as things arise that are unexpected at this point.
All right, Nick, you were going to make that change in the fire authority. So you'll have that little change or whatever for the final.
Yeah, and that was what I did, the fire authority approved a percentage increase for the chief and the volunteer firefighters, which are paid on call firefighters. Let's reiterate. Well, I did not give Chief Cups his raise. So I think it equated to $320 or something. So you will see a slight $300 increase in the chief's wages in the fire fund. And I'm glad you brought that up because I would have forgotten to let you know that.
Thank you.
You bet.
Just one last chat from Dana Mulder. Zoll Street is critical, the beach. Not exactly sure.
I think she means the new property. I have a feeling that she means the acquisition of the new property, which really won't come into play though until 2022, correct?
That's correct. Land acquisition, if it goes through, would be 2022 expenses, if any expenses are attributed to it. And that's another discussion we have to have, of course, is the whole financing and getting donations, et cetera. So we can talk about that at a future meeting. But yes, 2022.
All right. Well, there's no more discussion on the budget or the capital improvements plan. Anyone have any new or old business to discuss?
I do not.
Nothing? No? I saw a work vehicle at the spillway. Were they putting the railings in this week or?
That was going on. I don't know why it's taking so long. Lucas, have you heard in the past couple days from Benchmark about the timeline for the handrails for the spillway?
I haven't heard from Benchmark. I did a couple of times check up there to see what was going on. They had most of the handrail coming up the stairs, and they were installing the stainless steel cable from the lower handrail down. There wasn't a whole lot of activity up there. I just saw the trailer still parked there today. I would imagine it shouldn't take too much longer. I don't know if it's a staffing issue or what.
All right. So there's
Thanks,
They're
Lucas.
making progress.
They've been making progress for a year.
Yeah, but there's a trailer there now.
Yeah. No, it's good news. There was a while because of the COVID situation and the delay in construction that they didn't get out to it. So they're there now. Most of it's done.
good. All right. Well, if there's no other new or old business, I'd like to adjourn this meeting.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
again,
you.
Victor and team.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good night, all.
Good night.
Good night. And meeting. Stop share.